there's a great deal of confusion about these numbers. So inform us so that we can be up to speed.
Well, again, I like to say I'm a mom with stretch marks. Those are my credentials. I'm not someone who reviews science professionally, but I have been obsessed with these autism numbers for quite some time, the last 18 years. So for me, or excuse me, 16 years, because my son was diagnosed 16 years ago. I think it's important for parents to understand where they come from and to do their own research and to come to their own conclusions. You know, my goal was to just really briefly share. I've got notes here because this is not easy stuff, Shannon.
This is thick stuff. You have to wade through in hip boots. Yeah.
So the survey that came out on Friday, November 13th, is a parent survey, and the last time it was done was 2011. And that number, when parents were asked if they had a child with intellectual disabilities or development delays or autism spectrum disorders, parent survey, 1 in 91 said they had a child with autism. And this new survey, with the data done and completed in 2014, 1 in 45 parents reported back they had a child with autism. So it's different than and again, this is done, and I just want to make sure I read this correctly because I don't want to mess anyone up. So it's a National Health Interview Survey. And NHIS is conducted by the CDC. So that's the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And it is an important statistic to get parent information, but it was interesting in USA Today quoted, "This new survey found a big jump in the number of children with autism, although researchers caution that the increase is likely due to the way the questions were asked." What do you think of that, Shannon?
Well, this is what made the top of my head fly off and fly around the room, because that was the headline everywhere, that they asked the questions in a different way. But when you dug a little deeper and read to the bottom of the article, and it said, here's the question that we asked: has a health professional ever diagnosed your child with ASD, autism, PDD-NOS, or Asperger's syndrome? That's the big question that when I read that they attributed this difference to, and I'm thinking, but wait a second, that's an incredibly valid question.
Yeah.
Why are we saying that these numbers may not be accurate because of that question? I don't get it.
I mean, most parents understand when they've received a diagnosis for their child, they know what that diagnosis is. Very rarely do they confuse the diagnosis. Now, I have found sometimes parents are not readily available to share that information, and usually they don't want to talk about it. But I mean, that's a really basic question. Does your kid have autism? Yes or no? And Kelby has been nice enough to show the link. So you guys, there's some really great graphs and information so you can see the order in which the questions were asked, and you can come to your own terms, conclusions yourself. Do you feel these parents over embellished or under embellished, or just answered the question? That's the question of the day, I guess, with this survey.
Yeah.
And again, the last time this was done was 2011, and it's interesting, the Autism and Developmental Disability Monitoring Network, and it's short for ADDM, is the survey that was done in 2010, which came up with the 1 in 68 number. Now, I understand, and again, I can't predict the future, but there's possible that a new number will be done in March 2016. And it's basically on 8-year-olds, and the areas that they included, because this is important, is Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Georgia, Maryland, Missouri, New Jersey, North Carolina, Utah, and Wisconsin. And in that 2010 survey, which was done by Health and Special Education Records, so it's different. They're actually looking at printed records. And they calculated the number that we use today with the CDC. So what I find really interesting, the parent survey back in 2011 was not adopted by the CDC. They wait for the ADDM information, which should be, like I said, sometime in 2016. We think March, but again, we can't predict the future. It could be delayed by some way, shape, or form.